Professor Diab. Talk a lot about educational reform, and which is admirable, especially the pragmatic approach that you present with the policies that you instituted. My question is, I believe universities do recognize the emerging need and shift in how we need to address emerging issues and prepare students. But there is that lingering problem of financing. And that usually creates a nuanced approach for them. What would you suggest, based on experience or what has worked for you in the past, that others can adopt for them to implement some of these reforms that is very responsive to what we need right now?
Well, I mean, first of all, I'd like to say that if you look at history, I mean, Singapore, Malaysia, Turkey, many countries across the world, they have completely transformed the economic level. And the first step that they did was to revamp their educational system. So I'm talking K-12, higher education, vocational technical education, which is, unfortunately, in the MENA region, is regarded as a place where people fail. You know, they go, although it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's more important than higher education in many aspects, and I can talk about that later. But education is intertwined with transforming the economy of any nation. There are examples, many examples, in Canada and the USA, across the globe, in Lebanon, AUB and LAU, and LAU is the other Lebanese American university, where the model of, and I mentioned that, a non-profit higher education institution can work in the sense that you're not creating a university, which is happening in many places in the world, not just in the Middle East, so that the profit goes to the pockets of people that own that institution. Non-profit universities does not mean that they do not make profit. They do make profit, but the profit goes back to research, to student scholarships, to infrastructure. That's how universities improve. And this also gives an additional reason for people wanting, philanthropists wanting to, donate to such higher education institutions to allow these universities to excel. So the issue of financing is important, but there are solutions. So this is the first thing that the chairman of the board of Dhofar University back in the Sultanate of Oman, when I was president of the university, he told me, we have to make money, we have to, we can't lose all the time. I said, this is not a supermarket. You have to lose the first decade. So I convinced him, but I created opportunities for indirect income. So there are all sorts of possibilities on a campus where you can outsource restaurants, student housing, a lot of activities that students pay for, and especially if we're talking about a university that includes 4, 5, 10,000, 15,000 students, then these facilities make a lot of money, and a lot of that can go back to the university. Not to mention, if it's a in my mind, all universities should be non-profit universities. The status should be, and I think ministers of higher education can offer incentives to such universities to switch from for-profit or unknown to non-profit status. As I said, there are examples of successes in many countries, not just in the West, not just in the States, not just in Europe, in Asia and the Middle East that have succeeded under such a model. So the issue of finances is solvable. It will take time, but it's solvable. More importantly, is to concentrate on quality. And quality is not just a word. It's not a matter of just opening quality assurance office at the university and saying we're handling quality. It's about ensuring that you obtain within a reasonable time frame. I mean, it could be 5 years for program accreditations, 5 years after the first cycle of graduates from a certain specialization, and it could be 10 years for institutional accreditation. But there has to be a requirement, and that's what I did when I was Minister of Education and Higher Education. I don't know if you noticed, I said I established a quality assurance office that is chaired not by the minister, but by another council or entity that coordinates with the Minister of Higher Education, but not controlled by the Minister of Higher Education, because minister usually is a political figure belonging to a political party. And I was the unusual minister in Lebanon. I mean, it doesn't happen often in Lebanese history. To give it some independence, I wanted that council, Quality Assurance Council, to be independent, and they would be in charge of that process, which is program. Of course, program accreditation depends on what kind of program. So for engineering, you have ABIT. For business, you have ACSB. Different programs, different accreditation requirements. And for institutional accreditation, you have many boards across the globe. It doesn't have to be from the States. It could be from anywhere, as long as the Ministry of Higher Education approves that this is a valid, quality board that grants institutional accreditation. And this is a long process. It takes time. So it takes time, and you have to accumulate data. So it is possible. It can be done. It has been done. And I think it's the duty of the ministries of higher education to impose this, not just to recommend it.
Thank you for that. And I guess we all have a mission now to highlight the good results that have been realized from implementing some of these strategies so others can learn and we can all transform. Now we will go to the questions. I believe you have a question.
Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure to meet you, Your Excellency. I have a comment and then a question. From my experience working internationally, first of all, I personally find the Lebanese people in general probably some of the most resilient people I have seen. This is probably perhaps because of its long history of civil conflict and having learned to overcome and deal with it and so on. From my experience, when I was deployed through the UN, one time to Lebanon, one time to Afghanistan, the two restaurants that all the UN employees went to were Lebanese, owned by Lebanese people in Haiti, in Afghanistan, in the middle of conflict, where nobody else was willing or even, not scared enough to go and invest. So I commend your people for having this kind of resilience. And some interesting statistics I recently saw. I believe the population of Lebanon is about 6 million, if I'm not mistaken.
That's true.
And there are more people of Lebanese origin outside of Lebanon than inside Lebanon, which I found that also very...
About 20 million.
Which is also very fascinating. One question I have...
There's 10 million in Brazil alone.
Alone in Brazil is the highest population. I knew that. Yeah. about
1 million in the US.
8 to 14 million in Brazil, and then US, and then Canada, and then France.
Lebanese communities all over the world. There's a Lebanese community in Cuba. They've been migrating for hundreds of years for different reasons. Yeah.
Exactly, and I believe this is what has built the resilience that the Lebanese people usually have. And even when I was working in Iraq, the first kind of international school that came to Iraq was Shuwaifat, which is a Lebanese school that was established.
Sabas now.
Sabas, yeah, it grew up Sabas, exactly.
One of the best school systems in the world.
Exactly. Now, my question is, during your time as Prime Minister, what were some of the challenges that you saw considering the diverse makeup of the Lebanese society? You have Muslims who are Sunni, Muslims who are Shia, and then you have Christians, and they're constantly at, war.
Do you have a couple of hours?
No.
Oh.
I just would like to give you, the reason I'm asking is because I'm originally Iraqi, as we talked about earlier, and the same problem exists in Iraq, and Iraq has not been able to overcome it for many, many years. But I feel like the Lebanese people do it differently. I'd like to know how you were able to achieve these and to overcome some of these cultural and societal differences between the different religions and so on.
Well, as you mentioned, there are many similarities between Lebanon and Iraq, and again, that'll take another 2 hours. But one major difference is that there are, unlike Iraq, 18 different formal denominations, sects and religions and so on. So, Lebanon is 5,000 years old, not 200 or 300 years old. So the makeup of Lebanon has been very rich because it's been in the middle, the meeting point between East and West for thousands of years. So the makeup of the Lebanese society is really unique, and Pope John Paul II, I think, when he came to Lebanon, 20 years ago, he said that Lebanon is not a country. It's not only a country, it's a message to the world. Meaning, if such a model thrives and works and succeeds, it's a hope for the rest of the world, because it's not just about religions and sects and ethnicities. In Lebanon, you find everything, literally everything. So it's a very rich society, and as far as I'm concerned, this is a source of richness. And unfortunately, Lebanese are good in everything, and definitely they are the most resilient. If only 1% of what happened in Lebanon happened anywhere else, the country would have broken down. But they're very poor in selecting their politicians. And politicians are the ones that pass laws and are controlling all the appointments in the public sector. They choose everything. And the political system in Lebanon is basically a parliamentary system. True, the cabinet is there, it's the executive arm of the country, but at the end of the day, whatever you want to do, you have to submit a draft law. And the draft law goes where? To the parliament. And the parliament obviously is who the people choose. And for 50 years, we've had almost the same political layer. I mean, last April was the 50th reminder of the start of the Civil War in 1975. So you're talking about the same political layer with their sons, grandsons, and so on. And it's the same thing all over again. The Lebanese have not succeeded in that respect, in my personal opinion. But definitely they're resilient, and they are among the most successful businessmen and businesswomen across the globe. They're all over, literally all over. You know, we have such a beautiful country. It's a shame that we have to go through wars every few years, but that's the fact. And as I said, this is a very long story. I cannot answer in a few minutes.
Thank you. We will take 2 more questions.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Your Excellency, my name is Marwan Gomba. I work as a senior special assistant to the Minister of Youth Development in Nigeria, and also the CEO and founder of Sohedu Initiative of Africa. We focus on advocacy for quality education and leadership capacity building for young people and climate change. It is so exciting to know that you have established your career in educational field, ranging from even being the education minister before becoming the Prime Minister of Lebanon. My question is, with the recent introduction of AI, you know, in the education system now, many students are mostly relying on AI tools, ranging from the ChatGPT and now the DeepSeek. What can you say about the future of education now, specifically because it's not the old ways now, and most students are not, you know, relying on DeFi research and policies, open policies, most especially in Africa, on the regulation of AI. So what can you say about the future of education in that perspective? Thank you very much.
Thank you. So when I received my PhD back in 1985, I started teaching as a professor at AUB, and I used to teach almost all of the computer engineering courses. So microarchitecture, parallel processing, anyway, about 19 different courses. And since then, there was no AI at the time. Since then, there was no internet actually, 1985. I used to offer exams that are open book exams. And the intention was for students not to memorize, but to allow them to analyze and synthesize. You know, when you ask them to design a certain circuit or a computer system or whatever it is, the design, you cannot memorize because it's not the history of a certain country, or you learn the basics of how to do it, but then you have to be able to use these skills in order to provide the solution. So I'm giving this as an example to say that you can empower the students to find the solutions, as I mentioned, to allow them to innovate, to think entrepreneurially, to do research in order to find solutions. Because, you know, most of the problems that graduates will face in the workplace would not have been, they would not have been aware of them at the university. So it's not about teaching them how to solve, how to, you know, create this table, but to give them specifications of how to do a certain table, you know, in a certain way. And they have to use their skills, their innovative skills, the research skills in order to find the solution. So AI is a tool to allow you to address a lot of problems. I mean, I'm not sure if you're aware, Nigeria is one of the countries where it has a big population, I think 260 million, right? India, China, you know, these big countries. If you look at the number of students, I was invited by the Chinese government last December, and they tell me they have 100 million students that sit for baccalaureate exams, students that want to go into university, and only 30 million you know, are admitted. And they have AI tools to, and you know, when students answer, they handwrite. And there are AI tools and computer systems that correct 100 million, you know, exams for 100 million students. So each student has I don't know how many exams, maybe 20, which is corrected within a limited period of time. The old ways would have taken 10 years to correct such exams, you know. So, no, AI as a tool is beneficial, especially, you know, in areas where it allows, it discovers the weaknesses of students, and teaching becomes student-centric. You know, it's not a matter of professors standing in the classroom and giving the same lecture for 50 different students, and each student learns differently. Here you have a system where you can have customized, tailored instruction for each student based on the weaknesses of each one and the strengths of each one, which AI will discover. So there are many advantages to AI. And that's why also I mentioned that there are ethical aspects of AI that should be considered so that it's not misused. You know, I mentioned about virtual programs and virtual universities because I was talking about populations. If you look at the number of students that are requiring tertiary education over the next decade or two, the universities that are in the world today are simply not enough. So if you create a university every day with 5,000 seats, it will not be enough to accommodate all of these. So the only solution, whether we like it or not, I mean, there are many disadvantages to virtual programs and to virtual courses, but it's a necessity. There's no other solution where you can offer classes that include thousands of students, as I said, in a synchronous and or asynchronous mode. We have to figure it out as we go, you know, to ensure all the bottlenecks are addressed. But AI is no longer something that is optional, it's necessary in order to handle this huge volume of students wanting university education, bachelor level.
Thank you for that. We'll take the last question.
Hi, my name is Amelia Kelly, and I'm a trade officer at the Commonwealth Secretariat in London. And I'm also an Australian, where we also have a remarkable Lebanese community, as well as everywhere else that has been mentioned. My questions, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for such an insightful presentation, and also I can tell that education is incredibly important to you, as now allowing Q&A from the audience, which, you know, rarely we get that opportunity from a keynote. But I just wanted to ask about your work with raising. We regularly working in development. In the majority of my career, we're always keen to increase rankings in countries, be it education, business, whatever it may be. And the ranking of taking Lebanon to number 4 in math and science for education is remarkable. And I was wondering if you could just provide a few initiatives that were undertaken to achieve this. We always talk about wanting the ranking, but getting there is another story. And
right.
then, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Secondly, my question to follow up to that was also the remarkable number of 30% women in government whilst you were Prime Minister. And what this actually, again, an amazing achievement, and what this translated to, obviously, gender equality achievements, but also what this meant, and just some examples of that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, in reverse order, what the lady in the previous panel over there, when she mentioned men should make other men uncomfortable when they're fighting for women's rights, well, I made them a lot more than uncomfortable. It's I'm lucky I'm still alive, actually. But anyway, it was a firm request from my side. I told the president it's a deal breaker. I want all of these. I want a cabinet that is all technocrats, all specialists, none of them that belong to any political party, and 30% women. And I said, I never applied for the job. I never wanted to be Prime Minister. My name came out as Prime Minister several times from 2015 to 2019 by politicians I don't know, by journalists I don't know, by different people, because of the success stories I had at the Ministry of Higher Education, and because I was a technocrat. I was working for the benefit of the country, not a political party or a sect or a religion or a region or whatever. So I made a lot of people uncomfortable when I made that request, 30%, and I wanted them to be in pivotal ministries. Deputy Prime Minister is rare in the West, let alone it's non-existent in the MENA region. Minister of Defense, this lady, it's rare in the West, So it was upon my insistence, I insisted, and my response was, I never wanted the job. If you don't want that, I'll go. Of course, the pressure from their side, usually they would say, go to hell, okay, we don't want you anymore. But the pressure that was on them was the October 2019 revolution. I don't know if you know about Lebanese history, but there was 1 million people on the road telling politicians that we hate you all, we want you all out, we want a cabinet that are all technocrats, that are all independent, and with a prime minister that is also independent. So I happened to be there at the right time, and 8 years after I was Minister of Higher Education. So I'm tried and tested, I'm a technocrat, I'm an academic, when you tend to say, I don't want this, they tend to want you more, But that's the story behind the 30%. Of course, I'm for women empowerment from a long time ago, and I've always done different things, in different capacities, whatever my position. I gave a few examples, but there are many similar ones. So I believe that it's not a matter of just being half the society. They're more than half the society. It's a matter of, transforming a society, not just the economies, but the family itself. Would you want a mother that is educated, that is a leader, or mother that is uneducated? What will the children be? So. In my mind, it's a win-win for everybody, for women not only to be educated, but to be in leadership. I think it was mentioned in one of the panels, was it you who mentioned it, that men have failed. We've been in power positions for hundreds of years, and men have failed. Look at the state of the world today. Men have failed, So, and there are very good examples in Australia, in Finland, of women leaders that have done sorry, I didn't mean Australia, I meant, what? New Zealand. An outstanding lady there, yeah. There are examples where women have done amazing jobs. So I think, I strongly believe that women should be empowered. That does not mean that you select any women. Some of the women might do much worse than men, and that does not mean excluding men, But you cannot be a leader just because you're a man. You should be a leader because you deserve to be a leader, and women should be given the opportunity to compete for that. As for your first question, I forgot your first question. What was it?
Ranking of fourth.
The fourth. The ranking. Well, we don't do the ranking. This is the World Education Forum. World Economic Forum. that is held every year in Switzerland, and they do the ranking according to different sectors, including higher education. So I just gave this as an example. Actually, the report is still on the web, the December 2013 report. So we have, very high quality schools in Lebanon, very high quality universities. Despite all the problems, there has been a negative toll on them the past 10 years. But in general, relative to other countries in the Middle East, we have high standard, quality schools. Of course, not all of them. We have 3,000 schools, K to 12. I think half of them are public, half of them are private. Well, I'll give you an example. The baccalaureate exams, there are 4 tracks, different specializations. So 2 of them, the success rate is higher in the public schools, and 2 of them, success rate is higher in the private schools, which goes to say that there are very good and much lower quality schools in both the private and the public sector. The same applies for universities, but the percentage of good, very good, or excellent schools and universities is much higher than those in other countries. Now the picture is changing now because you have billions of dollars being spent in some of the GCC countries. You have, you look at UAE, for example, you have dozens of universities from other countries, American, Australian, South African, British, and what have you. But they're all either one specialization or one school. The only full-fledged university in the UAE is the Sorbonne, which hasn't been successful. Only, I think, 400 students, something like that. And the NYU, the same applies to that as well. Yeah, I mean, we don't do the ranking, they do it in Switzerland. And our students they secure places at some of the top universities after graduation from schools, and our graduates from our universities secure places for their master's and PhD programs, some of the top universities in Europe and the States. My 2 boys are both medical doctors in the States, and they're doing very well. And they were at the American Community School, which is not the best one in Lebanon. It's good, but it's not the best. Yeah, we have a good educational system. It's suffering now, the last 4 years, because of, that's another 2 hours. Yeah, I think I've addressed your questions. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was great. And on that note of revolutionary educational reform, technocracy, and remarkable impact on gender equality, thank you all very much for being here today. See you tomorrow, and all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.